From the Mecca Mormonism, Salt Lake City, Utah, this is Heart of the Matter, where we are seeking to understand how to be Christians in the age of fulfillment. This is part 2 with our time with Sarah Leanne Young, who is the founder and originator with her husband Joe of a website and a ministry and outreach, a unbelievably great concept that she was created for in her past experiences and by God through the Spirit, called Check My Church. We left off last week. Welcome.
Thank you.
I didn't even change my shirt. I was so impressed. I wanted good luck with our conversation to continue. You were telling us that you were driven both by your experiences and by Joe in the car about starting something to check these churches. You heard on Heart of the Matter a challenge where I said, yeah, I think that would be a great idea. No connection between the two of us. And you say, damn it, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So what did you do? You built a site.
I put the website together.
It's a great site.
I just went like, I'm not a computer person at all. Joe is the computer person, but he works all the time. You know, he's working hard. I'm a stay-at-home mom, so he does all the money earning. And so he didn't have time to help me with anything. He's just like, do it. You can do it. Do it. And I said, well, okay, but how do I do a website? He said, well, I don't have time to build you one. I said, I'll just go to one of those website building creator places.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah. So I went to Wix and I put together a website, and you know, it annoys him because he's a computer nerd. Every time he sees it, he's like, we got to redo your website. Every time.
Tell him to step up to the plate and
I'm
do
like,
it.
well, do it then. But he's busy.
I know.
But anyways.
And by the way, they have 3 children now.
Yes. Yep. I had
2 boys and a girl.
Yeah, I had Michael in 2016, and then Julia just last year. And so yeah, I put this website together. We started talking about what we would do, and it's just going to a church and investigating, you know, and trying to find out everything I can about them. And I put a list of questions together, and I would send them to the pastors because had no experience in doing any of this. I just thought, I'll just ask them the questions and they'll give me the answers.
Yeah.
So I would email them, send them my questions. I'd say, this is what I'm doing. This is my website. You know, just tell them flat out, this is what I'm about. Will you answer my questions?
And did you start with churches in Utah or Idaho or?
Both. I started with the churches that I know best. I did campus, I did real life. I did my sister's church, which was One Place Church up in Hayden, Idaho. I did Calvary Chapel, I did South Mountain, I did all the popular churches in these states until I started getting requests. But I started with the ones that I knew.
How many? That's like 10 maybe?
Yeah, it was just like 10 or so.
And what happened?
Nobody wanted to answer my questions, Sean. Nobody. Except for you.
What were the questions? Do you remember?
What is your church's official position on tithing? Is it required? You know, I would kind of get specific. Is it not required? What is your stance on that? Does your church have membership requirements? Does your church have a sin discipline policy? Does your church, what's your denomination if you have one? And it's just the questions about the church. How big is the church? How many members do you have? I've added a couple of new ones recently. What is the pastor's ministerial work history? And what other churches has he or she worked at? And if they left them, why? Almost like a interview.
Sure.
And so, because that's something that I've kind of started realizing is that pastors will sometimes pop up somewhere and you have no idea where they came from and why.
It's important.
Why they left their last church, because sometimes they will leave because of some sin, you know.
Oh, okay.
And then, but they don't want anyone to know about it. So they'll just step down. They won't explain why. They'll move across the country and start a new church.
I've seen that happen here. A guy at South Mountain disappeared all of a sudden. And then he went somewhere back east and he opened up a new church.
No, well, it's an already existing church.
Already existing church.
That's what they'll do, though. They'll incorporate themselves into churches that already exist to replace like a retired pastor.
I see.
So they do that. And I thought that's, you know, people should know that. If somebody's coming out of nowhere and there's no information on them, that's something you should know.
Anything about the way they teach, worship, or any of that?
Yeah, I will put worship information, if it's available, if I know what kind of worship service they have, what kind of sermons they have, if it's topical or if it's expository teaching, because I think that's important. And I'll put, let's see, what else is there? So much. But, I recently added the question of does the church have any safeguards against abuse? And has there been any incidents of abuse in the church, and how did the church resolve it?
Wow, what a great resource.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. I mean, you go there, I've just moved in the area, I got my family, let's go to this church. Let's go to check my church.
Right.
It will tell me
everything you want to know about a church.
Everything you want by the mouth of the leaders of the church, hopefully.
Yeah, that was the idea. It's like, see, the pastors, this is what they say.
Yeah.
They won't answer any questions, most of them.
So of just jumping ahead, all the churches, I don't know how many, we'll get to that, but of all the churches you've queried, questioned, sent, what percentage have come back openly and given you an answer to all your questions?
So I have about 50 actual reports on the website, but I've probably talked to over 100 different churches. And I would say only about 10, maybe 10.
So we're talking about 10% to 20%.
Yeah.
Have given you the full Monty.
They came back, they answered all my questions.
Wow.
No questions asked. They just said, sure. And some of these pastors would send me their financial information.
Good for those churches.
I am so happy. Every time that happens, I'm like, oh my God.
Wow, there is hope.
There is hope. And
so do you give them the automatic thumbs up if they answer all your questions, or do you still, like if they come back and say, well, we do preach tithing, we do not teach exegetic, or whatever you were saying.
Yeah.
Expository.
Right.
Will you say, they get a thumbs down, even if they have responded, or does responding just say to you, I'll take it?
Okay, so we used to do a thumbs up, thumbs down. We don't do that anymore.
Okay.
Because I wanted to change it to completely neutral and completely unbiased. But back when we were doing that, I would get super excited as soon as they answered my questions, and that would definitely be in their favor, okay?
I love that. You're swayed.
I would be swayed.
At least you admit it.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
I was not unbiased, okay?
How could you be? Nobody really is.
Some of these pastors are really smart, and they'll be like, what's going to happen if I don't answer? So they would just be straight with me. And so when they would answer, I would be like, okay, they do get a little check for answering the questions. But that didn't always mean that I would recommend them, because sometimes the answers would be like, yes, we have a sin discipline policy. Of course we have a sin discipline policy. And yes, we have membership requirements. And here's our laundry list of things that you have to do. And so those things I would always be like, don't.
So let me go to the horse's mouth. I'm sorry I'm being a little bit more interjectory here, but
no, it's fine.
This is important that we dialogue, because I want to ask you some questions. So, for instance, the sin discipline or the tithe or whatever. Someone will say, who are you to question what we do in the faith? So how do you respond to that? Who are you? Why do you get to ask about tithes and discipline and all this when they will use the Bible to back up their practices?
Well, I feel like I'm in the same position as any pastor or church, and I have a right as a Christian to have my own views. And a lot of Christians agree with me. They don't want to go to a church that's all about money. They don't want to go to a church that's all about discipline and control and structure and order. They want freedom. You know, they want their liberty in Christ. So I was coming at it from a place of, I want to help people to find these churches and avoid them if they can.
Okay.
Because I want to avoid these kinds of churches, and I know other people want to avoid these churches too. So it wasn't in the beginning from a place of unbiased, complete neutrality. And so I was just trying to help people to spot these places and avoid them. But then I realized it had more of a negative impact on the people I was trying to help. They would get mad at me because I would go on these long opinionated articles. I don't like this church because of this, this, and this. And instead of them coming, it was almost like I was criticizing them as Christians. Like, oh, I'm just an idiot. I don't know how to pick a good church.
Yeah.
And so they would get defensive and angry with me, and I would waste a lot of time arguing with people that I was trying to help. So it's like, my opinion doesn't even matter. So I just took it out entirely. I was like, the facts alone are enough to show people the problems.
I see.
So all I got to do is just give them the facts, and they can do whatever they want with it. They don't need my opinion.
And the other side to that, I keep staring at those lights. I don't know why. The other, because it's blinding me. The other side to it is that those people who want tithes, regimentation, order, sin discipline, if they want that for them and their family, they can find that on your site.
That's right. And that's what I figured. I was just like, listen, these people don't agree with me, that's fine. If I should be helping them find a church too, if that's what they want. If they want that kind of church, then they can go there.
So Check My Church has evolved in that sense, is that you, and when did that happen? I kind of remember, but.
It was like, I'd say a year ago almost.
And did you do away with these?
Yeah, I did away with the thumbs up, thumbs down. I did away with my opinions in the reports themselves.
Got it.
Because it used to take me like weeks to do one church, because I would write out everything I thought about everything.
Yeah.
And I talked to some people, and they actually told me, you know, I just skip right to that question, the questionnaire. They're like, that's all I want to know is the answers to the questions.
Sounds like people.
Yeah. And I was like, well, then I'll just make it the questions and answers. And so now I have just a list of information. I have the questions, but I also have like basic church information, like the name of the church, the pastor, the elders or leaders, the address, phone number, all that stuff, like where you can find them online, social media. But then I do specifics like denomination. Do they preach tithing? Did they answer the questions? I still include that. Did they answer the questions?
Wow.
No.
Wow.
So yeah, I just list all the information that I can find, and then the Q&A.
So what do you do when they don't answer the questions?
That has been the struggle. Like for several months at least, I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm like I'm stuck here. And
that makes me so angry that they won't answer the questions that the congregation should be privy to.
Things they should know. Anyone should know about their church.
Yeah. Whatever it is.
Because they don't want it out there in a way that's devoid of their image, you know, the way they want their image projected onto people.
Right.
It's just so cold and just facts.
It's like Jesus talking. He just gave you the facts straight up.
He would just
You're doing the same thing.
That's all it is. It's just the facts, man.
Yeah,
so
just the facts.
People, you know, the pastors don't really like that. And so anyway, I kind of was stuck for a while, and I was like talking to Joe. I was like, what do I do? They don't answer my questions. How am I going to find this stuff out? So that's when I started learning how to do some investigation work. And I started realizing I'm just going to have to find the answers myself, because they are going to think that if they don't answer my questions, then I don't get the answers and I don't post the report. And I was like, no, it's going to happen. Either way, I got to give people the information. So I just started researching how to find information and learning about like investigation work. And it kind of became a private investigation type of thing. I found this foundation called the Trinity Foundation, and they're pretty awesome. They do private investigations. They're licensed private investigators, and they look into the finances of televangelists. And anyway, they've been on the news a few times. They help, like, there was I don't know if you ever saw this, but there was an interview on Inside Edition with Kenneth Copeland and this woman, this reporter.
I saw it on YouTube.
They are the ones that found him for Inside Edition. Like, they tracked him down. They found his airline.
Wow.
They found him there. And so they sent him in. There they are. Go get them.
Right.
So they do this work, and I'm like, they know how to find things. They know how to figure things out. So I just emailed them one day. I was like, how do you do this? How do you find this stuff? Because I can't get pastors to even talk to me. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And they're like, we'll teach you.
Wow. That is the Trinity Foundation.
Yeah, Trinity Foundation.
Wow. So you've now learned to be a private detective for churches.
Sort of. I'm working on it.
You're working on it. And do the viewers of Check My Church, the people come to it, do they know automatically this information is from my private detective work or this information is from the mouth of the pastor?
When the pastor answers the questions, I say, we got the answers from the pastor, and I'll put his or her words in quotations. When it's what I found out, I always preface the Q&A with, they wouldn't answer my questions, so this is what I found out.
Okay, I have to radically speak my mind here. I hope there's a millionaire or a billionaire out there that will fund Check My Church so that this becomes a worldwide, especially a national database. Give them the tools to go out and do this very thing. The second soapbox is, I pray to God that people will see that if they go to a church where the pastor will not open up the kimono, so to speak, and answer these questions, that's a big red flag.
Yeah.
They are hiding something that, this is what religions do. Our people, they're not strong enough to handle what we're doing in the name of the Lord. So they aren't privy. This is what the Mormons do, the Catholics do, and all these small. And the final thing, then I'll shut up, is that like Copeland, we have on one side the extremes, Copeland and Benny Hinn and these people. But does that mean that on the way other polarized end of materialism and money, that even on the small scale, churches of 20 people, that the abuses aren't going on?
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
Because they want to be the big Kenneth Copeland.
Right.
And they still have that mentality of, we're going to do church this way in order to get big, like Kenneth Copeland or whatever, one of those guys. So even if they're tiny, if they have that mentality behind it, then they're doing all the same things.
Yeah.
And
I've heard of churches in the valley where the pastor has had 5 pass the plate sessions in the service.
Oh my
5.
God. Oh my God.
5. Okay, we need to take another love collection. Okay, we need to have a collection for something that's come up in my life.
I think I know what church you're talking about.
Sick son. He needs, okay, it's insane, the money. So what have you learned? Okay, I don't know how in depth you want to get before we go to our topic B, but what have you learned generally from this experience? Because even though it's been 50 to 100 churches, that's really a lot for the amount of work that's taken. What have you generally seen in the positive and in the negative about organized religion?
Well, the positive I'll just get out of the way because it'll be brief.
Oh, people will get so mad at this. She is so dead on.
There are still some really good churches out there. There are. They're just really hard to find. And I've found, I think, the group of people that are able to find them. On social media, I'm in all these spiritual abuse groups. These people that come out of abusive churches and cults, and they all came together on social media.
Wow.
And so when you go in there, and people ask this question all the time in these groups, is there a church that doesn't do this, 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 and this? And I'm thinking in my head, based on my experiences, not really, but everyone will answer, yeah, my church, mine. And I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
They all have congregated online. So there are churches out there that are financially transparent, that are not abusive, that are not tyrannical, that are not obsessed with controlling your life, and that just kind of let you do you.
Wow.
And teach the Bible.
So are you gleaning those names and putting them in a special place?
I have a list so long of churches that I need to write reports on.
But you got to vet them because because congregates can be blind.
Oh yeah, I mean, you look up any church online and it's 5-star reviews all around. So everyone's gonna say this, but these people that I find, they will actually say, our church tells you whatever you wanna know about the finances. It doesn't matter what it is. They do it every year. They give us a report, we see it. Everybody in the church knows about it. You don't even have to be a member. You know, they will specify things like this, and I'll be like, wow, if that's true, that's great.
Okay, so on that subject to start, there are churches that I don't think you'd recommend. In fact, you haven't recommended, that you've studied, that will have apparent financial transparency.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, there are abuses going on with finance and with other things behind the facade.
Yeah.
That's got to get difficult.
It is. And that's where the investigating really comes in. Because even if they show you this report, it could be a totally fraudulent report and you would have no idea unless you know what they're doing with the money behind the scenes. And so I'm learning how to research things. And I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about what I know. And how
if it's going to expose you in any way, don't talk about it.
It's just, they're teaching me ways that I can research things without any help at all from these churches.
Wow.
To find things out. And it's been, man, it's been interesting to say
You are
the
a
least.
threat. You are a huge threat.
Hence why people are losing their minds on the internet and coming after.
And let's talk about that. By the way, before we do it, there are some churches that I'm not going to get into it with Sarah, that she has gone after and she's had difficulty with, and they're very large, very powerful in the state. But I want to make something clear as we now enter into this discussion to wrap up our show. Do I have any control over, and I guess any cult member would say, no, you don't when you do, but is there any influence I have over your and Joe's life about how you raise your kids, ever giving money to us, what you do with your free time, your sexual sin life, what you believe, your doctrines, your practice? Have I ever said you should follow me? I am the right way. I receive revelation from God. You have been with us forever. Have I ever given any of that?
Literally none of it.
Right. And yet I'm called the cult leader.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yet the other churches which are considered free and good, have you found that they will do those things?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And let's just give an example, okay? Jeff Durbin's church, Apologia Church. They have ministry involvement outlines. You can go on their website and look this up yourself. They have standards that you have to live up to in order to be involved in ministry at their church. And literally one of the standards is you cannot be a coward. And if you're going to be in this ministry, act like a man.
Does that include women?
Obviously not.
Is that kind of thing is absolutely insane.
I think so. I think
so
it's insane.
She brought up a name. And
I
this
did.
Was not
I did. I'm sorry.
Did we talk about planning anything like this?
No. This is just what I just recently discovered and found to be very, that's a red flag for me. Any church that's willing to put that kind of information on their website obviously doesn't think there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would consider that to be a red flag. And they talk constantly about, we will watch you. We're going to watch you for 2 years and make sure that you align with our goals and yada, yada, yada. And then after this probationary period, if we find that you're good enough, that you could be an elder. And I'm just like, oh my God, give me a break.
So she's brought up a church there in Prescott, I think Prescott, Arizona, or Chandler, Arizona.
Somewhere in Arizona.
Somewhere in Arizona. And they're very big. They're called Apologia Church. I've spoke at that church years ago when I was accepted. And Jeff Durbin is the pastor of the church, and James White is part of their elders board. About a week ago, maybe less, they did a hour-and-a-half show, and the name of the show is called Cults, Apostasy, and Shawn McCraney. And in that show, aside from all the things that they leveled at me, which are being addressed by me on the show last night, and then some other ways that are going to be addressed, Jeff Durbin said the reason we're doing this show on Shawn McCraney is because I had a little inquest from this woman I love.
Poor woman.
Poor woman and her husband, and they're under the influence of the cult leader, Shawn McCraney, and I want her to be freed from his clutches. And what I found out through her questioning is she has a site called Check My Church. And so she belongs to she attends online a church that says it doesn't believe in the biblical model of doing church, and yet she's checking churches using the biblical model, and they go off for an hour talking about how hypocritical this is, ridiculous this is, and everything else. The first point I want to make is I am not your leader. I am not your guru. I don't care what you believe, and there's many things you don't agree with me on.
Yeah.
Right. You don't get to do that in a cult, you idiots.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy that they're able to say that. And I mean idiots in love, like you're my idiot brother. But idiot brother, you can't say that I put her in bondage, that I'm a cult leader, that I control, that any of that, when none of it is true or applicable. Okay?
Well, and here's the thing. Let me just say this.
Please.
When we first started Check My Church and I was trying to figure out what to do, I kept asking you, and you can attest this, I kept asking you what I should do. You're just like, just do it. I'm just like, tell me what to do. You literally would not.
I don't have any insights for you, woman.
And so I was annoyed, but at the same time, as I've grown in my walk, I've realized this is how Christians mature. Is by not being controlled and told what to do with every little ministry project and every little thing they want to do. Just figure it out. Right. You'll grow.
Instead of we're going to watch you for 2 years,
right.
Make sure you drink the Kool-Aid, have enough arsenic in your cells so that you're the walking dead, unthinking. And then,
like a drone that
drone.
Needs permission and outlines for every little thing you do as a Christian. It's just like nobody grows that way.
Right. So then, this is going to be a little tough because you don't know that I'm going to ask this, and I don't know what you're going to say. But what do you say to their defense that when you read the New Testament and Paul's letters and Peter's and John's and whatever to the church, Jude, you must defend the faith and all these things that they use to justify their control over the flock as being applicable now, how do you respond to that assertion versus the assertion that I say, I'm not going to get involved at all. It's up to you.
Right. Well, first of all, I think that they are literally misinterpreting most of it. I struggled with this for a while when I was trying to reconcile my own beliefs about how churches should do things with eschatology and how if your eschatology is one way, you really do have to believe that the church needs to operate in this way.
Right.
And if you're like you are, fulfillment, it's all happened already, that's really literally the only way you can say. None of this really applies anymore. So I struggled with that for a while, trying to reconcile things because I didn't know what I was. In my eschatology. So I was trying to figure, and then I would talk to people, I had this problem, and they would say, but the Bible says this, so we need to do it this way. And so I'm trying to figure out in my own head, well, are they misinterpreting the Bible, or is it all really based in eschatology? And so I think it's kind of both. I think the eschatology has a lot to do with it, and if it's already fulfilled, then it really doesn't apply. And so all of this stuff they're doing is just complete nonsense and it doesn't apply to anybody. But at the same time, even if their view is correct of eschatology, I think that they're still misinterpreting things and they're trying to take things so literally, or they're not even taking it literally. They're taking something that is not talking about church at all and they're making it about church. Like verses that talk about, submitting to your elders. And I'm just like, well, are they talking about elders in a church government or are they just talking about your elders?
Old men.
Yeah.
Yeah. Old women. Yeah.
They do stuff like this. Don't neglect the gathering of together. And I say, yeah. So that doesn't really mean we should literally go to church every day of the week, does it? I mean, they use these and they try to impose them on people and use them to manipulate people, but I think they even take it too far, even if they're right. Even if they're right about eschatology, I think they take it way too far.
And I'm glad that you add that caveat, even if they're right.
Right.
Because what it says is, it doesn't directly say it, but it might say, I even in fact think they're right. But nevertheless, I think, and that is great because it shows, one, it proves directly, I don't care what your eschatology is. I don't care what your view of God and the Trinity is. I don't care what your view of eternal punishment is. So you can say, having been with us, and I'm sorry to turn your interview into me, but you could, this is what cult leaders do.
Yeah, right. It's all about you.
Yes, it's all about me. But you can say, because you've watched a lot of Campus and a lot of Heart, you can say and witness with God as your judge that we will at Campus embrace whatever view someone has in love, even if I disagree with it.
Right.
Right.
Well, and that's the thing. You can't be in a cult if people can literally believe whatever they want.
Right.
Like, the purpose of cults is to control you.
Right.
And to force you to be, they clone people. It's just a people cloning business.
Right.
So this is like literally the opposite of a cult.
And now I have to throw one more at you, and then we can, how are we doing on time?
They're just hanging out back there.
30 minutes we're in, so we've got 30 minutes left.
Okay.
So I forgot what I was going to say. You carry on. You're the host. I'm done.
I don't remember what I was going to say.
We are in trouble. What do you have any scouts that go to church for you, or do you do all the research and work and personal visit yourself?
Sometimes people volunteer to help. I haven't had very many, but Michael Lake, he helped me a lot with researching early on.
Wow.
He did a lot of researching work for me, and he wrote a couple of our church checks too.
Wow.
So he did a lot of helping. He's really good at researching churches online. And he's the one that recommended that I check Apologia.
Wow.
It literally just out of the blue. Like, I wasn't even checking them for some kind of insidious purpose.
Yeah.
He messaged me and said, I have a friend who recommended Apologia Church to me because they have an ex-Mormon ministry, and I'm an ex-Mormon, so I was looking into them, and I saw some concerning things, so maybe you should check them.
Look at that. Michael Lake is from the UK. In fact, he was diagnosed with cancer. We're praying for him. But he has come out of Mormonism, and so he's been a great help to you and to us, to tell you the truth, his family. So what's the hope to you with Check My Church? And are there other things that you think that you should change or do better in the future with how you've approached it? You've made some big changes, which I think are good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else that's on the and then give us your website and tell us, and if there's any stories that you want to share, anything that says, listen, I've really gone deep with this church. I've gotten in with this pastor, and I'm just going to tell you, if you're going there, be very careful. That's up to you. Up to you.
I have a few churches that come to mind there, but the hope is just to encourage Christians to think more objectively about their churches, to do the research and to think about, I mean, most people go to church and they just kind of experience it. They don't think about it, and they just take everything the pastor says as gospel truth, and that's it. That's their life as a Christian drone, serving the church and not really thinking about anything, and being manipulated and controlled and having the life sucked out of them by the church. So that's the hope, is just to kind of wake them up a little and convince them to think more about these things and free them really from the bondage of religion. And that's the hope. But I really want to be an informational source for just anybody that's looking for information on any church.
Wow.
But I have gotten into it. I have gotten into it with several,
Do share.
with some pastors. I'll tell you what, I'm making a change. I'm making a change now.
Right now, on this moment?
In this moment.
Are we seeing a revelation?
This is a revelation. I am not emailing pastors anymore.
Ah.
Because it's a waste of time.
Wow.
I mean,
how are you going to get your questionnaires to them?
It's a good question. I really want to raise awareness so high that people start asking their own churches these questions. I want to challenge people. If your church is really so honest and transparent and open and not insecure about these things, ask them these questions.
Oh, wow.
And then tell me what they say.
Yeah, that'd be a great system.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, Sarah, you are not trying to shut the world down from church.
No.
That's going to be an accusation.
Oh, yeah,
You're
I know.
following me.
It has been.
Yeah.
But I'm not. This is really going to help people with their church, like their church work more. I mean, when you're going to a church that you know is not manipulating you and you actually think that consciously, this is a great church and they're really teaching the Bible, I mean, you will be more motivated to serve those people.
Wouldn't pastors get that?
This is just a natural result. When you're in any kind of relationship with somebody that you know is not manipulating you, wouldn't you want to be involved in that more?
Right.
But then the other thing is like the bad churches. I'll call them the bad churches. I really wish people would stop giving their money to them because that's why they do it, is to get money.
Yeah.
So.
Money and power, would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
Control?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because with control and with power comes the money.
Right.
Yeah. And it builds their kingdom.
Yeah. And that's what they're doing. They're just building kingdoms.
What are the warning signals from everything that you've seen now? What are the warning signs, top 5 if you have them, of what people should, if you see it, that is a red flag?
Well, it's really easy to spot materialism because they spend their money on the building, on the worship equipment, on when you look at a building, all you got to do is look around and think how much money was spent into putting all of this together.
Right.
And do they have building funds where they're asking people for millions of dollars?
Right.
So really just how much they're asking for money, and are they saying you have to give money because it's a commandment in the Bible, or are they just saying we want money for this purpose?
Right.
Like the lying is an important red flag. It's one thing to ask for money because they need it for whatever reason. It's another thing to guilt people into giving money because God said you should.
Right.
And if you don't, then you're not a loving Christian.
That's the caveat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Using God's name to say God wants you to be obedient.
Yeah, and that's the other accusation that I get is that I believe that pastors shouldn't be paid.
Right.
And that's just ridiculous. Of course, anyone that's doing a job for any reason should be paid.
Right.
So
it's the manipulation of using God's name and tithes.
Right. It's being deceptive and controlling towards people.
Right.
It's like when you're abusing people, then I'm not okay with it.
Right.
So that's a big red flag.
Okay.
And then membership. If they have an official membership, I mean, look it over and pay attention to it. But another reason that they have memberships is for legal purposes. And if this has happened a few times, when people try to leave the church and the church doesn't want them to leave, they'll say, you can't, you're under a contract. You can't leave the church. You signed this. You have to be under discipline now because you're trying to leave. And it's a whole legal thing. When you sign a membership agreement, you're signing a legal contract that binds you to the church. So I would never sign a membership agreement ever.
So I didn't know that. So what you're saying is that they then keep themselves in the power.
Right.
That you've signed a membership. Only we can release you from this, and it's because we found you to be an apostate.
Yeah.
Because you're breaking the rules of the membership agreement.
Right. Yeah.
It's
and
sinister.
it's just another way to put themselves above you.
Wow.
And to control you and to sue you maybe if you don't do what they want, you try to leave.
It's like a really nasty gym membership.
Yeah.
Yeah. You pay us to come in and work your ass off for us. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, work your butt off. What are other signs? Memberships, materialism.
I would pay attention to the pastor and just the way he is, really. If you're good at reading body language and and reading, because my husband and I will go to sermons sometimes, and it's so clear to us that these pastors are putting on a show and they're acting out a performance. And it's not, and that's one of the things that Joe really loves about you, by the way, is that when we came here, you were just sitting here in your chair and you're reading the Bible. You really don't care.
I don't. In fact, I go the opposite way, and I guess that's a form of acting, but I strive to be uncaring about
non-showman.
pretense.
Yeah. And that's the thing that people should look for. The more animated a pastor is, the more I'm just like, this guy's just...
You mean pacing and...
Yeah, and like putting his arms around and acting, and it's just a show. It's a show.
I love that.
I hate it so much. Anyway, yeah, I would just pay attention to the character of the pastor. Like if you see he's acting one way during the sermon, and then you get to know him off stage, and he's a totally different person, I would be like, well, he's just acting then, isn't he?
Oh, I see.
So those are three big things that I would pay attention to, is just the materialism level of the church, money, transparency. If they're not really transparent, then you got to ask yourself why.
Okay.
And then just the behavior of the pastor, really, because they're running the show. And I've noticed that the pastor's character really determines the church. And if the pastor is materialistic, then the church is materialistic. If the pastor is abusive and controlling, the church is abusive and controlling.
Whoa, this is good.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
And so the roots bring forth the fruits.
Right, exactly.
Whoa.
It spreads. And the whole church becomes whatever that pastor has problems with. It's like, it becomes the church. It spreads.
So we have a giant phallic symbol in the corner of our church. It's a total joke. It's a joke. It's not really unreal, but nevertheless, total joke, sorry.
I don't care.
But it's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the pastor's dream of the church becomes what the people are and what you see.
Well, because the church is his vision, right? What he wants to happen is going to happen.
Yeah.
So if his vision is to have the biggest church on the face of the earth, he's going to do everything to make it the biggest church. If his goal is to just make sure people are living holy Christian lives, you know, and there is a difference between those two, by the way, because
definitely.
On one hand, you've got someone who's just, he doesn't really care about money. I've noticed that. The legalistic churches don't care about money that much. It's the materialistic ones don't care about controlling people that much. And they are all about the money, and they'll spout grace all day long. These churches are all about being holy, and we don't care about money.
Yeah.
It's
but they
really
do care about
interesting.
control.
They do.
And so in those churches, we could have mean-spirited people.
Right.
Right. In those churches, we could have these liberal...
Very loving people, but where's your money?
right. Wow, very great insights. One other thing on Jeff Durbin's show, he said something to the effect, which was speaking to me and you, of they're against churches and they're against the money coming into churches, and you gave context to that. It's not about money coming in, it's using God's name to get the money.
Right.
And they said, don't they see what you can do with the money? Don't they see the good you do with missional efforts with the money? Don't they see what you can do with mission trips to the poor, making sandwiches? And they justify the influx with the good that they do. How do you offset that argument with the materialism and the money with which they demand?
Well, I mean, just think about it with the Mormon church, because they bring in millions, billions of dollars, and they have the same argument.
Yeah.
We're all about helping people. We do all this good, and that may be true, but what else are you doing with the money? Because apparently you've got pretty rich leaders, and it's like they may be helping people, but what else is going on? And why do we need so much money to help people? I don't understand that. They have people volunteering their time for free.
Yeah.
People are volunteering and they're bringing food to help the homeless. They're doing all kinds of work. It's like, that doesn't cost money.
Right.
None of that costs money. What costs money is the $10,000 light show.
Yeah.
And
that's fascinating too, because we can look, when we talk about the nascent church and what true orthodoxy is Jesus and his apostles, there was no money basis in this.
They didn't have buildings.
Paul brought in some of it, which I don't agree with 2 Corinthians and Paul's push for money for the saints at Jerusalem, but that's me. But in any case, Paul brought in some, but Jesus, it's like, you don't have a place to trust in God.
Right.
That's gone in today's church, unless they're good ones.
Well, and even with Paul, and when he says, you know, give, then he follows it up with, but I don't want any of it.
Yeah.
I'm a tent maker.
Which we never see.
Yeah,
They'll say,
they use the first part,
yeah,
and then they ignore the second part where he's just like, I don't want any money. This isn't, I would rather die than take money.
Right, that's what he says, right?
He says that.
Yeah. They forget all of that.
They cut that part out.
Yeah.
Conveniently.
She's smart, she's a whip, she's a bulldog when it comes to getting to the heart of the matter. I'm going to apply that to you. There's no connection. I love the fact that you and Joe have done this ministry. I pray to God that it will consume the world, because I really honestly believe it will help us push against what some evangelicalism has done to the faith. And it's embarrassing, and it's driven people to atheism and mockery of the church. And I think what you're doing will absolutely serve as a material affront to what they've done. And I believe that with my whole heart. So I pray, support their ministry, support them. I'm saying that because they do work. Go to the site and look at checkmychurch.org. I say calm all the time. Go and check it and see the work they've done, and then supply them with more churches, and then write a check to them. I don't ever say that. I rarely say that about money, but this is a mom and pop operation. It won't hurt. They need that funds, and send it to them instead of Apologia. Send it to them instead of your local church that is building bigger and bigger things. This will reach people and help them and put an offset to atheism more than almost anything else. And I really believe it. I think that you've been led of the Spirit. Final comment from Sarah Leanne Young. Besides, you want me to announce that your name everywhere I go in that way?
No, please don't. Please don't. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say. I've kind of left it all out there, but I will just say that I am not being influenced by Shawn McCraney, and he doesn't even know what I believe, I don't think. We've never even discussed.
I've never asked her.
We've never discussed it because we don't care.
It's between her and God. And our friendship and our relationship in the Lord, Joe's too, it's about love of God and everything. Because she's probably right on many things that I'm not. It doesn't matter. We're trying. Yeah, no, that's the key, is that we're just trying. Yeah. And everybody's just trying. Yes. And these churches that say you've got to, don't try, do what we think. Yeah. Those are the cults. Yeah. Because they want you to turn off the brain and just submit to whatever they say. That's what a cult is. Not churches that say, believe what you want, but we're going to teach what we believe. You don't have to believe it. That's just what we teach, because that's what we think. A great final summary, and we'll wrap it up with that. God bless you. Write your comments below. Check out checkmychurch.org. We'll see you next week here on Heart of the Matter.